right, this is Masters of Podcasting. I'm Conley.
My name's Melissa.
And today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 11, 1 for the money, 2 for the show.
3 to get ready and 4 to go. A programming note, real quick, that we want to add in. Next week is the finale. Actually, it's coming up like tomorrow is the finale. We'll be recording the finale episode for the podcast, and the lovely What the Fuck Did I Miss is going to join us. It's going to be fun and loose, and we're going to have a nice conversation. And we'll also be revisiting some of the predictions for Season 2 that we made back this summer in episode 112, and we're going to talk about whether they came true and things like that. So it'll be fun.
We can have a good laugh about how wrong we were.
How very wrong we were. I have a feeling that none of them came true, but we will see. We still have one more episode to go, so maybe, fingers crossed.
Hey, you never know.
Maybe everything will happen all at once.
You want to start out with Team Impotence?
Let's start out with Failsville. Sorry, Bill and Jenny, your erection is in another castle. It's too bad.
I just one of my favorite parts of this scene, and I'm sure this was not supposed to be the clear winner, but whenever, they're trying to get things going, and so Bill's trying to get Jenny to talk to him about how awesome it was and how he felt, and Jenny, God bless her, as much as she can sort of talk her way in verbal circles around the CBS people and around, the workplace and at home, the only thing she can think to come up with is very good.
It was good. It was very good.
It makes me laugh every time, and I'm not sure if that's just, delivery or, the way that she's kind of staring at him. I don't know. Either way, hilarious.
I loved it too. And it was nice to see that they've kind of achieved this level of coupledom in a way. They looked like a married couple getting ready for bed, getting undressed. She was kind of wifely looking at his bruise, his little scar, and saying, it's going to heal well. You can cover it up with a little bit of makeup, and getting him to unzip her dress. Contrast to season 1 when she wouldn't let him touch her zipper. It's kind of nice to see that they've moved into this level of intimacy and level of familiarity beyond. I mean, we actually have confirmation that they're, sort of on the same playing field, which is always nice to see because they are out of sync so frequently. It can be really stressful if you like the idea of Bill and Jenny together.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how relaxed they were, just, bitching about all the usual things and getting ready for bed and going through the little routines until the actual sex came up, and then it just went to hell. And
it was even more so when she said, no, you didn't mention that your brother had skipped town. I mean, that was kind of we're kind of getting into this chapter of the series where Jenny is basically Bill's second wife. I mean, there's no other way to put that. She's there, and that's what this is.
Yeah, and I guess I just not only appreciated the dynamic that they have, in all senses, like here in the beginning, but just watching the way that they try to deal with some of the awkwardness and the emotional fallout that really we haven't had to see either of them do very frequently over the course of this season. It's always been, everybody's high-strung, things are all over the place, things are in crisis mode, but I kind of liked how, this is still obviously dealing with a lot of the same issues, but it's in a much quieter way and a much, like you said, more married way. It's very domestic.
Yeah, and at the same time, I thought it was interesting that Jenny brings up the fact that Bill was kind of bloody and keyed up at the end of the last episode twice. She says it very quietly the second time, but at first she theorizes that the reason they were successful a few nights ago was because he was keyed up, his blood was pumping. She's getting into this really descriptive, she even calls him repentant. She's successful in describing him in this language, but then he completely shuts her down and doesn't want any analysis of it. And she says, no, we don't have to talk at all. But then he wants her to talk. So it's this really weird dynamic. And then he says, I want you to tell me how it was for you the other night. And clearly he's talking about the sex, but she turns to him and says, what, you mean seeing you beat up like that? And it kind of made me wonder if Jenny, if we're seeing very subtle hints of Jenny needing to mother Bill, that it's sort of not becoming Oedipal. I know we've harped on about that before, but sort of looking after each other or taking care of each other, kind of them against the world, an extension of what's obviously been a theme this season. And I think we sort of see that come in a complete circle in this episode, because they start out, it's very marital, very domestic, very husband and wife, and then it merges over into their professional life as they go in front of the cameras, and then it circles back around into the final image, which we'll talk about later, but it sort of becomes that very motherly protectiveness. And it's kind of Ginny fulfilling all the different necessary roles that Bill needs with a capital N in his life.
Well, and I think, too, I was reading in one of the forums for one of this episode, and I forget who made this comment, but I really like the way that they put it, which was essentially to the tune of, one of the reasons that Ginny and Bill, have such a, not strong as in healthy relationship, but strong as in that kind of magnetic pull, is because Ginny has this desire to be needed by someone who is, as powerful and as brilliant and as stubborn as Bill.
Yeah.
So she really does derive a lot of pleasure and, I guess, necessity in having someone like him need her in all these ways that she wouldn't be necessary otherwise.
Yeah, she wouldn't, it's a level of fulfillment that she wouldn't get from any other kind of job or any other kind of relationship, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a very astute way of putting it, because they both need each other. And I don't just mean Ginny needs a job, Bill needs Ginny to help him get an erection, Bill needs Ginny to help him do the work. They need each other on an even more basic and instinctual level. Ginny needs to be needed, and Bill needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And it was frustrating, of course, to see yet another instance of them not being successful in getting the sex going. And I think part of that goes back to Ginny just, she goes through all that description, but then when he actually asks her, describe how it felt, she doesn't, you don't see her disengage herself from it, and it's clear that she is enjoying it, but it's as if she can't come up with the words, or she can't come up with a description.
Which is why it was so funny to me, because she spent, several minutes just waxing rhapsodic about how, these are the reasons that it must have gone so well the other night, and, here's the psychology, and here's the physiology, and blah, 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 and then he says, well, how did I feel inside you? And she's kind of like,
Hard? I don't know.
It cracked me up, because, again, I mean, it's not often that we see Jenny thrown for a loop, really, in any sense, and I just love how unprepared she is for that answer, although she had to have known something like that was going to happen.
Bill likes to watch, and Bill likes to be told.
Oh, Ginny.
Well, here's hoping that they get it somewhat resolved in the finale. God help us. What are we going to do if it's another season of the impotence team?
Well, the props department will have some fun with that.
Oh my God, that was amazing. It was incredible.
Okay, so in talking about that particular reference, so the next day, obviously Bill wakes up with a little bit of morning wood and just very frustrated because it's 9 hours late by his watch. And
it's just incredible. The look on his face was so frustrated and just so pissed off. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this now? What the hell do I do?
I still have continual delight that someone's job was to rig him up for that scene.
And probably to adjust it and make sure that it was, framed properly and everything. That was amazing.
Bravo.
God bless whoever had that job.
So yeah, I really feel like there was a nice undercurrent of dark humor in this episode, even as bleak as it was in places, but I definitely appreciated that.
The fact that Bill is trying to, he just after that scene when he reaches for Libby's makeup, it's symbolic. He's trying to cover up the scars that have resulted from his family strife and kind of the whole abusive cycle that his life has gone through, and he's unsuccessful because at the office Shep calls him out on it. Are you wearing concealer? And I think that's Bill's fundamental problem, is that people will be able to see past the walls and past the defenses that he's put up for himself. So, yeah.
Well, and then he won't be able to explain it away. Not just that they'll see it, it's that they'll see it and be standing there like a gaping fish going, no.
Yeah. So then we move on and we get to visit George again. George comes back, and boy, has his life changed.
God, his haircut has changed for the worse.
Oh, Audrey is making him slick that shit down.
I do like that they went kind of the extra mile with her character, even though we don't see her on screen. Because usually in any sort of step-family situation, it's always, oh, we hate so-and-so. They're so in love, but she's evil, and she's a bitch, and she's awful. And, you know, here's everyone over the moon for Audrey, even though she, you know, can't sing and takes the kids to all these places and teaches them all these random things. I really appreciated that they didn't make it into kind of a one-note plot line.
Yeah, and it was nice. It's kind of funny that Audrey is the responsible one in the three-way parental relationship that is Audrey, George, and Ginny. Because George was the irresponsible one, and Ginny made him look terrible by comparison, and now Ginny looks terrible by comparison because Audrey is having a good influence on George. And Ginny is now the, I don't know, not the evil mother in any way, but just kind of the louche, not really paying attention parent.
Yeah, I love how Audrey is the only one pulling any, like, parental weight. Obviously, George is pitching in much more than in the past, but clearly there is a powerhouse here, and neither of our dear George and Ginny are it.
I'm hoping that we'll see Audrey, but part of me also wants her to be Maris and to never be seen, but to be constantly referred to and to do increasingly outrageous things.
Yes, I would love for her to be the Maris Crane of this show, frankly.
Yes, that would be awesome. So, what did you think of George showing up to take the kids on a 6-week European vacation?
I mean, obviously, we're not really watching this show for Henry and Tessa, but I do like the fact that Ginny really didn't think about the kids that much until George came in and said, well, I want them to come to Europe for 6 weeks, and it'll be over Christmas. And then it was kind of that childish knee-jerk reaction of, no, you can't have them. I get them. They're mine, and I want them.
I can't believe that she sought out a lawyer to talk about renegotiating her custody agreement. Like, what universe is that a good idea? It's a European vacation. What does she think is going to happen? That he's going to lose them or something?
Yeah, I guess she just thinks that he's going to, like, pack up the bus one day with the roadies and they'll be sitting in the back of some jazz club.
Maybe. I mean, and I don't know, you know, you're right. I don't know what Ginny has suffered through with George's levels of responsibility over the years. But at the same time, the lawyer is right in bringing some common sense to the situation. Like, whoa, don't scuttle what is working for you. Let him do this little vacation and then he'll be sick of them after 6 weeks.
Yeah, and I like that he gave her not just good advice, but the type of advice which she, I think, will most appreciate, which is very on the nose as far as, look, you do this tiny favor for him, he will have to do something for you later, quid pro quo situation, you're a divorced parent, this can work for you.
Yeah. Although it was a little too on the nose when he was like, oh, I know mothers, you always have to be near your children. I know your children are your first priority and they're all you think about and you must rush home every evening to be with them. And Jenny's like, yeah, I'm rushing to go somewhere to be with someone, but...
Yeah, I'm tucking someone into bed, but it's not my kids, so...
Yeah, I will be interested to see what comes out of it, but I think I'm seeing a plot device there to get Ginny on her own for Christmas. I have to admit. I mean,
plot contrivances abound with this, but I'm kind of amused to see where they'll take it as far as Ginny is concerned.
I will be okay with it. I will be okay with it given what I think is going to come out of it.
Well, and I know we kind of had competing theories there, so... I feel like you need to share yours and I'll share mine.
Oh, okay. I think it's going to wind up with Ginny spending Christmas with Bill and Libby in a little triumvirate marriage situation, or it's going to be Bill taking yet another opportunity to essentially abandon his family and go and spend a week or however many days with Ginny in bed.
See, and as much as I would enjoy seeing the second play out, I think the first and very likely option is that it'll be, Bill grudgingly having to spend Christmas with Libby and the kids and Essie maybe, and then Ginny sitting alone in her apartment eating cheese at 10 o'clock at night.
I would hope that Libby has a more generous spirit during the holidays than to allow her dear friend to sit at home working on her night cheese.
I would hope so too, but it just seems in a season that is bent on, punching Virginia into the ground.
But at the same time, Michelle Ashford did say that she ended the season finale on a much better note because the characters had been through so much. They had been through so many dark places, and she wanted them to be happy.
Oh, well, that's nice. So it's more like a Downton Abbey Christmas special.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe it'll snow.
Maybe. Oh my gosh. That would be perfect. And then Jenny says her first word or some shit like that. Like, I don't even know.
Baby Jenny. Yes, of course.
Do we want to move on to the filming and all the things that come out of that?
Let's go ahead.
All right. So totally apropos of nothing, when the director showed up, I swear to God, I thought they were calling him Roger Corman. His name is Roger Corwin, and I got really excited because Roger Corman was a horrible B-movie director in the 50s and 60s. He made terrible, terrible movies that Mystery Science Theater 3000 made fun of a lot. So I got really excited, and then I was let down. And that is my completely tangential story that has nothing to do with anything.
If only they could have filmed the documentary in the style of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Exactly.
We would have all been better off.
So this does not go well for Bill, and we really get a sense for just how, as he says later in the episode, just how uncomfortable he is in his own skin. But I think we keep going back to the shooting and the filming because the point of this is really that these little indignities and sacrifices and humiliations start to stack up and ping against Bill's ego to the point where eventually he's essentially, like a series of paper cuts. He is so, his ego is damaged just enough that he doesn't have the self-protection that he needs through a swelled ego to hold off his insecurities, and he succumbs to an even greater sense of despair. And I want to talk about that, Bill hitting rock bottom several times within the last few episodes. But let's kind of work our way through it chronologically, starting with Bill having to give up his bow tie, which is horrifying.
The horror. The
absolute horror. I did like that it was that he gives the reason that he wears a bow tie. We actually get a reason for it, and it's a good one. He keeps it out of women's junk during their pelvic exams. Like, what kind of dangerous world is the world of pap smears?
Well, when fashion and function meet,
you can't deny it has some higher purpose in life.
I just love that Bill put that much thought into his personal outfits. Honestly, that filled me with glee.
Yes, and Libby having to show up to give him a tie that wasn't his, some mystery tie that just appeared from somewhere, and it has that horrible, I think it has like a pattern of a chess piece on it. It's really ugly.
I couldn't even tell what the pattern was. I could barely see past the orange.
I think it might have been red. I mean, it was decent, but Lester is absolutely correct later on when he says you look really weird in that tie. And they messed with Bill's hair. They combed his hair in a different way, and it's just not Bill. And he is so right when he gives the Thoreau quote, just don't mess with his whole thing, his whole worldview, because you're setting him off. And of course, in a nice contretemps, Ginny is perfectly comfortable in front of the camera. She's comfortable in her dress, even though she and Libby are wearing the same color. She's perfectly happy. She can handle all the weird stuff with the camera going on around her, being measured for the lighting, and Bill is just completely thrown off. I know the whole thing was played for laughs, but I really did feel sorry for him. I mean, here he's hired this company to come in and help him, and they really kind of, not intentionally, but they just sort of wind up tearing him down in a really exponentially awful way.
Yeah, it's very subtle, but I did like the fact that they made sure to show it because obviously, even in real life, this is the dilemma that they ran into, was that here is Jenny, who is very used to performing for an audience. She loves that. She thrives on it. She can explain all aspects of their research, no matter what the censors or the programmers or whoever is telling her what to do.
Well, she's advantaged because she's not the doctor. People don't expect her to say, you know, medically eloquent things, and she can be charming. And it was so awful and cringeworthy when she said, "Don't you find that everyone wants to sit next to you at dinner parties, Bill?" Like, there's some level of her just totally not getting, like, what Bill is all about. Or
see, and I thought she was kind of purposely trying to tease him, like, into a reaction with that. Not that it was just straight up
not understanding.
But it was just kind of like, Bill, come on, like, don't you want to be the light of dinner parties? And then he's kind of like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That could be her intention. But it was nice to see him sort of click on after he got to give his explanation and have a little flub that he could laugh off. And he did smile on camera, and he had a little moment there. That was good to see.
Well, you know, when you're a man and I'm a woman.
Did you feel the same moral dilemma about hiring the actors as Bill did?
I guess initially no, because, you know, I sort of didn't think as far as, well, you know, these people are not only going to be appearing on camera, but supposedly will have participated in the study. But I thought that, I think it may have even been Lester who made the point that, you know, these people, they didn't just only agree to participate in this study. That, you know, it's confidential. It's, you know, they participated using their own bodies as this cause, and, you know, how personal that is. And so I think that really was a point that needed to be made and refuted to Bill, especially because I don't think he was really equipped to, I guess, take on that fight.
You made a really good point earlier before we started recording about kind of the difference between Lester and Frank as approaching Bill with their separate problems and their separate takes on life.
Oh, yeah. I wrote down in my notes that I think, obviously, Lester, for most of the season, has kind of been the foil to Frank because, you know, while Frank is just supposedly dying to be, you know, the little brother to Bill's elder brother and wanting to have that family relationship back, even though he has his own problems and is sort of tired of dealing with the eternal master's bullshit and refusal to talk about problems. But, you know, here's Lester who, although God knows he can't talk about problems near as eloquently or as personally as Frank does to Bill, you know, he still is able to present his case and to go in there and say, look, you know, no one else is telling you this, but, you know, you have to stick up for what you believe in. You have to hold to your ideals because otherwise, you know, what the hell are you doing this for?
Yeah, and I think it wasn't until the actors came out and it became an ethical dilemma about, you know, well, if people see these people as actual patients, you know, they're going to worry that their own medical records will be released as well. I think that was the point where I finally understood what Lester was going on about, because I didn't quite see his side of it. And maybe Bill didn't either, because it didn't really seem, if there was anything wrong with the way Shep was approaching the whole filming, it was kind of subtly insidious, if that makes sense. Like, it was very bits, you know, tiny little adjustments here and there that if you look over your shoulder, they kind of add up to be something big. But it wasn't until those actors showed up that it was like, okay, we're definitely crossing a line here. Like, this is definitely too much. And I think even Ginny kind of felt that way finally, too.
Yeah, because at first, I mean, it's kind of salacious in a horrible way when, you know, the cameraman is just going through the tape reels and going like, oh, okay, this is all women with dildos. Well, we can't use that. Maybe I can cut together scenes of people being suggestive and, like, you know, some lace and eye contact. And Lester's like, well, we didn't make From Here to Eternity. You know, this is all we have.
Yeah, this is what we've got to work with, and it's not suggestive at all.
Right. So I think you're right. It was a nice touch for them to sort of build that insidious feeling and that spiraling out of control until it reached the point of, here are the actors who are going to play patients on camera, and then Bill just kind of realizes how far in over their heads they are.
And on that note, I just thought of this. I'm kind of wondering if tomorrow's episode, and it's always, the previews are always meant to be far more dramatic than the actual outcome. I'm almost wondering if maybe Lester gets so fed up with the filming and everything, the way that everything is going, that he sabotages CBS's film or something.
See, I would love that. I do love some intrigue, but I know we talked about earlier, whenever there's some sort of heated exchange in a promo, I always assume it's going to be over something completely trivial and stupid that blows over within, 10 minutes of the episode.
That's perfectly possible.
You fucked up. You didn't bring me the right coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I kind of want to save the last Bill and Ginny part for the end of this. Do we want to jump and talk about Libby and Robert?
Yeah.
Let's do
Where
it.
did you want to start?
Okay, so them in the car having this very revealing conversation. Libby has some self-perceptiveness that I wasn't really aware that she had up until now. But she talks about Robert testing her so that he can kind of determine whether or not she's, in her own words, a dilettante, whether or not she's a white tourist, just kind of coming in and hanging out, the bored housewife who needs some charity work to do. And that's very, it's very critical of herself in a way that I don't think we really get from Libby all too often. And that was a very interesting conversation that turned slightly sour, I felt like, because Libby says something like, well, you don't want to admit that you should thank me, or you don't want to thank me. And she says that just as the cop shows up. So they get interrupted at the one point in the conversation that I would have liked to hear the rest of, because I kind of would have liked to know more about her intention of her language there. But they get interrupted.
Well, and I know we talked about, I thought that made sense to me. I mean, it's superior and it's pretty snotty, but at the same time, Libby is a character who all her life has been raised to be, or has raised herself to be the good girl and the one who, is above all others and is teacher's pet. And so it makes sense that even in this moment of critical self-reflection, which I really appreciated, she still has that little bit of her that says, well, I am trying and I just want a little bit of positive attention.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's fascinating that what she ultimately gets off on is the negative attention, because she's had a lack of attention that any attention is good attention to her.
Although what I also like about this conversation, you mentioned that obviously Libby is critical of herself and is self-aware in a way that we haven't seen from her until this episode. But I liked that she's so not just critical of herself in a kind of self-loathing way, as we see in Bill, but in a realistic way, and I would say kind of a brutally honest assessment of her own flaws, which you don't often see with any character.
Yeah, that's true. So they go inside and they dismiss Libby's neighbor who is babysitting the children for the night. And Libby does not care. Libby is not experiencing any danger or warning signs from this whole situation. Not that she should feel threatened by Robert, but that she is putting both of them in a lot of danger, Robert especially, by just kind of flaunting the fact that she has a black man in her home in the middle of this affluent white neighborhood where she could very much be criticized, and Robert's life could be in danger if someone were to find out and say something about it.
Well, and at first I was wondering, if this Robert-Libby tryst was going to happen and then Robert was going to leave and this cop was going to jump him in the middle of the night. I was expecting it to take a more violent turn with regard to that situation because, obviously we see Robert being very hesitant and anxious and questioning her motives for all of this, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was really nice that he kind of called her out on it and said, you're just kind of exotifying me and kind of making me into an other for you to fetishize.
Yeah, and not only that, I like that because I think in a lot of these situations in these storylines where people have extramarital affairs or just they want the attention or they're trying to get someone's attention, it's always our passion is so strong, we can't resist it, we are helpless, and yet here there obviously is chemistry. There's also
a higher a better sense of, what this could have as a consequence. I honestly thought Robert was going to flat out reject her and walk away right up until she grabbed him and started kissing him. I really, really did.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was not expecting that to happen, despite Libby's many, many tries in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. And all the tongue-in-cheek dialogue about how the button won't fit through the buttonhole, and, well, she has smaller ones. And
well, I think my favorite part was when she, he was so nervous he didn't want to get out of his shirt for her to fix it. But then it just meant that she had to fix the button while he was still wearing the shirt. And then she leaned in and bit the thread off the button.
Oh, Libby.
Girl. She's going to make it happen.
This is going to happen on her kitchen floor next to her children's toys.
Well, and I know I kind of joked about this because when I was watching it, I texted you and just said, I have Madonna stuck in my head right now, but the way that they filmed that particular scene, while it was very not funny, I mean it was sexy, it was very, I think, joyous, especially in the way that they framed Libby, but it was a little bit kind of sensational and surprising because, like you said, here they are, here's her kids' toys in the background, they're in the middle of her kitchen, ostensibly with the blinds still open on some of the windows, and yet, nope, don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, it's that kind of, I don't know if it's carelessness is the word, but as you pointed out earlier, Libby is not exactly being the most cautious here.
Yeah, that's true. She really is throwing caution to the wind in a lot of different ways, and I don't know if this is the type of show that would have a pregnancy scare result from this. I don't know. I can't make that call because the show continually twists things around and surprises me, but yeah, I don't know.
Would I want the show to go there? Probably not.
No.
But at the same time, I would find it a little bit entertaining, so.
Entertaining. You're funny.
Well, I do try.
I think it would be, gosh, wouldn't it be one hell of a storyline for both Ginny and Libby to get pregnant with babies that they wouldn't want and to have to scramble to come up with some kind of means of avoiding a pregnancy.
That certainly would be ironic.
That would be one hell of a thing with a capital T.
A thing like that.
A thing like that, Conley.
What else do we want to say about Libby and Robert?
It had shades of the season premiere, Bill and Ginny, just kind of the way it was filmed, focusing on her undergarments and kind of the togetherness of it. That's not the word I want, but it was
intimacy, maybe?
Yeah, it felt very much the same. It felt like we were watching the start of the season over again with two different characters.
Yeah, I know we mentioned earlier how Robert is asking her, why do you want this? Why do you want me? Some women only want to sleep with black men because they feel like they're lowering themselves. There's kind of an element they don't like themselves. There's a lot of self-loathing. But I like the fact that although Libby is critical of herself in a lot of ways, it's not, as in Bill's case, it's not self-loathing in that kind of depressive cycle. It's just sort of unhappiness because no one sees her for who she truly is.
Yeah.
So I really like that aspect of their relationship and that conversation. I thought that was really interesting, the way they played that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. I know some people had bad reactions to it. They didn't want it to happen. I don't know. I don't know what to say to people like that. I have no response to that. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. I don't quite know how to react to that because it's clear that we were building towards that and some very interesting dialogue and some very self-aware conversation came out of that, even from Robert's end. I don't know that I've ever thought of a show set at this period of time has been so, there's that word again, self-aware about precisely what it is that Libby's really doing here or what she could be conceivably doing here, which is really, it is kind of that otherness that's exotic to her.
Well, and I think too, the writers were very, I won't say careful because that implies that they were being cautious and kind of tiptoeing around, which they aren't. But they certainly knew what they wanted to write, I think, when they were writing this Libby storyline, because although it was sparsely, I think, contained in the first two episodes, and then rushed in the middle.
Yeah.
I think they definitely knew the end point, and this feels very natural as far as they're beginning a real affair and having this strange kind of emotional intimacy, which eventually leads to, as we saw, kitchen sex.
Well, and we'll see if it continues. I don't know if this is something that will be sustainable.
Well, see, I don't know. I'm kind of two minds about that because, you know, while Robert is kind of someone who, from the glimpses that we've seen, seems to be a little bit of a ladies' man, kind of not fast and loose, but I think with maybe a little element of danger and sort of forbidden things in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that obviously this is the type of relationship where you can't just go in thinking, oh, it's forbidden, it's going to be so sexy, that's all it's going to be, because they obviously know, you know, they're dragging much more baggage than that.
And that's what I like about it. That's what I appreciate about it. There's a lot of emotional, racial, societal baggage that makes it more intriguing and more interesting and more revealing than it would have been if it had just, you're my nanny's brother. Wow, you're super good looking. Let's have an affair.
Yeah, and I like, too, how it places her in kind of a unique work situation as well, because
now she's got to go back to work with him.
Yeah, she's still volunteering at CORE. It's not like she's just going to stop showing up because she got Robert into bed. You know, so I think that might be interesting, too, to see if anyone else picks up on that new dynamic and if that changes, like, her working relationship with some of the other men and women at the CORE office. You know, this is the point when I really wish that we had spent more time with that group of characters and not just with Robert and Libby, and not, you know, spending so much time with Austin and Flo, which is killing me.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do we want to spend any time there? I don't have much to say. Flo and Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they find it so funny, because sometimes I find it funny, and then sometimes I just want to hurl a brick through my computer, so.
And I feel like all these different relationships and they're just like mirror or slightly turned versions of Bill and Ginny's relationship. And I don't know if that's on purpose or if I'm just starting to perceive things that way, because you get this Robert and Libby having a forbidden affair, and then they have to go back to work and see each other. And then Flo and Austin, it's a power play, only, oh my gosh, the roles are reversed, and the woman is sick of having to be the ball buster and wants the man to get on her level, and he won't. And it just seems like they're just slightly turning the relationship a few degrees this way or that way, or flipping a few things, and everything is starting to seem like it's meant to comment on Bill and Ginny's relationship. Maybe I'm just seeing things.
Well, see, with Robert and Libby, I mean, I am probably 1,000% interested to see where they'll go next. Austin and Flo, I could give a damn.
And the thing is, they're going to be in the finale, because there have been pictures of him hanging around her house shirtless some more. So apparently they're a thing now.
And like you said, it's kind of this like funhouse mirror version of Bill and Ginny, and again, I don't really know why the writers are so fascinated by it, and I feel like it's been the same kind of arc 3 and 4 episodes in a row. It's not just, oh, well, this happened, oh, well, this built on top of that, and now it's become complicated, oh, this just keeps, you know, moving into uncharted territory every time. No, it's just always sort of, well, I don't really want to be here, but I don't have anyone else to be with, and I don't really know what you want from me, and here we are.
Yeah, so let's just skip over Flo and Austin. Sorry, people who wanted to hear about Flo and Austin, but I'm just sort of holding my hands up in a giant shrug gesture and going,
Meh.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, last part with Bill and Ginny, where Bill has yet another breakdown.
Do you think the writers just like watching Michael Sheen try to cry on cue?
Maybe he's getting really good at it.
Maybe he just wants to really showcase that for Emmy season.
Well, and I don't think it's so much that Bill has hit rock bottom multiple times. I think we're watching him unravel in different ways. I think it's not the same thing recurring. I think it's different facets of his life, and he is slowly approaching this event horizon where he can be vulnerable enough to just let Ginny do whatever the hell she wants. I think finally he's gotten to the point where it's just like, I mean, in the last episode he was like, I give up, but clearly he hasn't, because clearly he's still, working and trying to get through it. But I think it's meant to move us to a point where Ginny can get in and work on things on an emotional level, which is what she has been driving for, but it's also what Bill has been shutting her down on consistently and repeatedly. And now that he's finally at this point where he can let that in, that's, I think, what's going to fix him.
I just find it so fascinating that it's almost like the horror movie flip of that kind of epic romance, because and you mentioned this before we started recording, in that last scene, they have that moment where, they're hugging and she's holding him and he's crying and she's like, it's okay. And then all of a sudden he just sort of sinks down the wall and then she's holding him in this, like, very motherly way, and
it's the Pietà.
I think it's supposed to be romantic, but no, you can hear the horror movie strings coming in, and
well, and for me, it's not so much horror as it is, you watch it the first time and it seems very, very sweet. She hugs him so tight and she won't let go and he gives in, and it's just really sweet that they're both able to admit that they need each other, and she holds his face in her hands and he slides down, and it's all very sweet. But then you watch it again and you're like, this is really unhealthy and dangerous.
This is fucked up.
This is very messed up. This is a very messed up relationship. But at the same time, I really don't want, I mean, obviously we know what's going to happen. We don't want them to, be in a healthy relationship and, go along their merry ways, because that would scuttle the point of the show. The point of the show is for them to be in this horrible mess in the first place.
Well, and I think, too, it's obvious that not only are they in this unhealthy kind of relationship, but they both really feed off of it, because Ginny, at the same time she's saying, I don't know what you want from me, what more reassurance can I give you? She's like cradling him to her breast like a child.
Yeah, she's able to flip that switch and just walk over, and suddenly it's the dialogue completely flips on its head. At first she's almost freaking out on him, and then she just takes control of the situation and is more reassuring than, like the most reassurance that she could possibly give is right there. And she doesn't just hug him, like she shifts him. She almost jerks him towards her to get him into an even tighter hug. And it's, you could say that it's because he's finally admitted, that his insecurity really stems from not being able to engage in the affair with her.
But at the same time, I mean, he was able to engage in that affair for so long until she kind of pulled him out with the discovery of Shelley, supposedly, and then he just, spiraled into that insecurity and depression and shame hole wherever he's been hiding for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it's just, it is that insecurity that's affecting their relationship, because he is fundamentally insecure in the emotional aspect of it. And I think for them that's been very convenient to not admit to having any feelings, to not talk about it, to avoid it altogether. But it is, it's a cracked foundation that their entire business is standing on, and they need to get it fixed. And they need to fix Bill in order to kind of be able to move on in everything else. They can't advance to the next stage of their video game quest until Bill gets it up.
I guess it's one of those things, because I do love watching this happen on camera, and I think Bill and Jenny's relationship is fascinating, but at the same time, I am getting a little bit of that emotional fatigue where I'm like, I love Michael Sheen, but I don't know how many times I can watch him crumple into a tearful ball before I just give up and start chugging my wine straight from the bottle.
And swear to God, they had better fix this in the finale, because if they give us a middling, even if they give us a middling success, maybe it's a success, but maybe it's also kind of a step backward, I'd still be okay with that. But if it's a repeat of season 1 and oh my gosh, everything's gone to shit, I'm not going to be able to handle that.
Yeah, no, I need something to be at least a little bit positive.
Yeah, Michelle Ashford has thankfully said that she wanted to give them a bright spot for the future since it was such a bleak, dark season.
Well, would that she does, because I won't be able to handle it otherwise.
So I'll just reiterate our announcements. We are super excited to get to have What the Fuck Did I Miss next week. Yay! She's going to join us. It's going to be a party. Oh my god. She's going to be the life of the party. It's going to be amazing. And also, we will be kind of revisiting shit predictions that we made at the start of the season. So, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this is almost over. Like, it's going to be so weird not having Masters of Sex every week.
It's gone by rather quickly.
But at the same time, we've been doing this podcast since May, so it kind of feels like it's been going on forever.
Forever and a day, Melissa.
Forever. Oh my goodness. All right, you want to close us out?
As always, you have been listening to Masters of Podcasting. If you have a question for us or anything you want us to address in next week's finale podcast, feel free to drop us a line at fuckyeahmos@tumblr.
Yay! Thanks for listening.
Bye!